today's Coaching Coordinator podcast. We're going to talk about defensive line play, building trust in the position room, how important the eyes are in being able to get the right run fits and be effective on the defensive line. And joining us to discuss those things is the defensive line coach at Eastern Kentucky, Jeremy Hawkins. Coach, it's great to have you here today.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on, brother. You're doing a heck of a job with your podcast. I really enjoyed watching a few of them, so I cannot wait to get started with you.
Awesome. Well, Coach, before we get into some of those topics today, I want our listeners to learn a little bit about you. You've made some stops along the way. I've had some great experiences. So, even prior to that, though, what was it that really made you want to become a football coach and do this as a career?
Heck, if we go back and start from the beginning, after I finished playing, I got into the real world, I guess you could say, a real 9 to 5 at a youth detention center. And I did that for a calendar year, and I hated every day of it. So I gave my old head coach a call at Troy University, Coach Blakeney, and he was like, you can come back in GA for me. It's not a lot of money, but you can do that. And I went back in GA'd and, kind of got into it from there. It was a real life experience for me that kind of got me back into the coaching realm of things. I knew I wanted to do it from the beginning after, playing the game. I just didn't know how to get into it. I didn't have an idea how to get into the coaching side of it. So me calling my head coach was like a cry for help. Like, please help me. Well, what can I do to get out of this real world thing, and be able to provide, for at the time it was just myself, just have a job and be happy about what I'm doing and not be miserable about going into the office. But I called him and he told me to come back in GA for him, and I did that. Did it for a semester. I actually got a full-time, restricted earnings job at University of Central Oklahoma before I could even start a season with Troy as a grad assistant. Mm-hmm. So I got that phone call, and he got the phone call and he told me about it, and coaching running backs and tight ends at the University of Central Oklahoma. And I was, kind of confused, like, Coach, I've never played or anything to that nature, knew anything about running back and tight end. He said, yeah, I know, but it's a job. If you want to get in this business, a coach is a coach, and you better learn how to coach. I'm like, okay. So, I had to sit down with Coach Beck. Coach Beckles at the time. He's the now the running backs coach at Middle Tennessee. And I just kind of, got all his drills, and he told me what and what not to do. And, I kind of just did what he did, and I'm thankful for that because I had no clue. I had to go there and learn that offense and kind of understand, how to be a running backs and tight ends coach. And I ended up having an All-American running back and all-conference tight end. It wasn't me. Those guys were pretty good players, so I just didn't mess them up. So I ended up leaving there and taking the job at Dublin High School, and became the D-line coach there for Coach Holmes. Learned a lot on Coach Holmes. He's if anybody know about Tennessee or Georgia high school football, Coach Holmes is pretty legendary.
Yes, he is.
So I worked up under him for 2 years, and he molded me to kind of, be who I am today. And I'm thankful and grateful for Coach Holmes. He helped me, get my foot in the door in the college ranks. So that's what I did. He helped me get my name out there. He allowed me to go and interview and do, different clinics and things of that nature to learn about the college game. So did that, get a bunch of interviews, and I just didn't quite, have the experience because that's what guys were looking for.
Right.
But, if you don't have the experience, you need to get it. So I was trying to get it, and I didn't get the opportunity. The only opportunity that presented itself to me was Middle Georgia State College. And it, at the time, was a defensive coordinator job. So I go there as a defensive coordinator, and within 2 weeks of the job, the head coach, he's an older guy, he had a heart attack.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he's okay. But it was one of those deals where I'm like, okay, well, who's going to be the new head coach? Heck, am I going to be able to stay on? I just got here, and the AD brought me in, and he's like, we want to interview you for the head coaching job. I'm like, what? I'm not a head coach. I'm not nowhere near it in my mind. So I've never wanted to be a head coach, but I prepared for the interview. I interviewed for the job, and they hired me. And we ended up winning 9 games that year and had a pretty good season, and which propelled me to, get an opportunity at UAB with Coach Clark. And they had just shut down their program at UAB. So after they shut down, I was, thinking about like, okay, is this really a good opportunity for me? But, once he told me the plan that he had, the vision he had, you know, um, that's all I needed. I needed an opportunity for FBS Division I program, and he gave me my first opportunity to get my foot in the door, which in 2 years of recruiting up, you know, on the road recruiting, on the field coaching, that was, a great situation for me in my career and learning on how to do this thing, and after 2 years of doing that, we had a season in 17 and ended up winning 8 games and became bowl eligible, and got an opportunity to go to Bahamas Bowl and heck, had a great time out there. And the game didn't come out like we wanted to. It wasn't a great game for us, but it was a great opportunity for our program, for UAB and for myself. Heck, when I was at UAB, we had 2 top 50 recruiting classes, and without any facilities, without a football team, without anything, we had a top 50 recruiting class 2 years in a row. So I guess that kind of helped me propel my name out there a little bit. And heck, I get a call from Ed Orgeron, and I'm thinking people are joking with me. I'm thinking it's a joke, And I'm trying to figure out if this really is Ed Orgeron that I'm talking to right now. And it was, and and I interviewed for that director player personnel job, assistant director player personnel job, and actually got it on the first day I went there, I interviewed, and at the end of the day, Coach O pulled me to his office like, I want to hire you. And he asked me the question, how did I, get a top 50 recruiting class at UAB 2 years in a row without any facilities? My answer was, I'm just being myself, Coach. I'm just being me. And he said, good, that's what I want. And brought me in. So I did a year there, and they were, I think, 17th at the time in recruiting, which is really, 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 really bad for LSU and the SEC. So one thing that I did was I made sure that when I went in there, I made an impact. It didn't have to be like a complete, overhaul.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't that bad when it came to a prestigious program. They are LSU. This is the SEC. So I had to do small things and, build relationships, help these kids, help this recruiting class build relationships with each other. And that's what I did. So it was fun to do that. And we ended up having the top 5 recruiting class because of it. Signed some real top-notch guys, and got back to rolling. We got Joe Burrow in there, had played a big part in that, and that helped out tremendously. We got a bunch of transfers, to be honest with you, that helped us out. Division I transfers from other Power 5 schools that they weren't using their guys. Okay, well, we can use them, that type deal. And we got Joe in there, and the rest is history. Everybody knows what happened after that. He had a stellar career at LSU. He broke almost every record at quarterback at LSU. So that's one of those things where, I learned from that. I learned from the recruiting process, and that helped me out, with learning how to, you recruit at UAB and you recruit at LSU. It's completely different.
Yes.
Completely different. It's 2 different levels. It's unique in its own way, from recruiting from UAB to LSU. So, and then, once after a year of that, I'm kind of, okay, in my mind, I'm like, I need to get back on the field, period.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get back on the field. I'm a football coach. I'm not a player personnel guy. So that's what I decided to do. It was get back on the field. And, I had the opportunity to interview at a few places. Coach O, he even helped me out a few times to get interviews and try to help me out, get me on the field as a football coach, which he knew I was. Mm-hmm. He knew the opportunity wasn't going to be at LSU for my first, on the field, but Division I position job. So he was trying to help me to get one, and I got the couple interviews and got offered a few other jobs that were just a lot further away than I really wanted from where I'm from. So when the opportunity presented itself to take a job at Mercer in Georgia, that's where I'm from, born and raised in Americus, Georgia, which is an hour and a half maybe from Macon. So when the opportunity presented itself, I had to take that opportunity. Didn't go into a real good situation there. Had a really decent D-line. We ended up having two all-conference guys. Started 3 walk-ons through the season. And, but we grinded it out, and we figured it out how to play D-line up front. So it was a tough deal. Won 4 games, went into a situation where the head coach, Bobby Lamb, great guy, love him to death. It just wasn't in good blessings. He wasn't in a good situation with the AD, and at that time, it was already kind of a situation where we had to win when I got in there. And if we didn't win, we were getting fired. And that's what happened. We won 4 games and got fired. And I was searching for a job again soon after. And opportunity presented itself at EKU with Coach Wells, and thankful for that. And heck, when we just got here and now COVID came along and kind of, just jumped on our back, and it became that bear that kind of took us down, and with COVID, it was an unexpected thing. It was something that, we had to deal with that wasn't, a natural thing to deal with. So we had to adjust. And with that adjustment, we had to play a schedule that was the toughest schedule that we had to play, and the toughest schedule in school history, period. I mean, we played Marshall, which is a top 25 team. You played West Virginia, which is a team that competes in this conference for its conference championship every other year. You play Troy, which is a team that, of course, I played for in college, but it is a team that competes for the Sun Belt Championship. Yep. And we played two top 10 FCS schools throughout the year. So we didn't play a OVC conference game at all. It was, we went all around the world and to say that we, played the toughest schedule in school history was good, but we wanted to end the season off with a bowl game, and that's what our administration did for us, and we ended up winning the game. And at the end of the day, we know that these kids were working their tail off and went through a lot in this world, in this world right now with COVID and everything else that these kids had to go through. They deserve to have a bowl game at the end of this season here, and that's what we did, and we won the game. So they're champions. No matter what the record says, they're champions.
Well, I think anybody who could find their way onto the field this year and deal with this adversity has shown a lot in terms of being a successful person. Coach, as I look back at your experiences here, and even starting out with, your first experience in coaching is doing something that you're not familiar with at all. Never played running back. You coached running backs and tight ends. Then, just the different stops along the way, being a personnel director, et cetera. Let's start with that first one. Do you think having to, coach something you weren't familiar with, how did that really help you develop as a coach, maybe as compared to as if you went right away into coaching defensive line?
Right. And coaches say, if you're a coach, you're a coach. If you can coach anything. And heck, when I first heard that, I was like, whatever, man, I'm a D-line guy, coach D-line, that's it. But I feel like me going through that situation when my back was against the wall and I had to learn this offense, the spread offense. I had no idea what, no terminology. I was not prepared for that job, but it made me a better coach. I had to come in and do all the extra things to learn this offense. I had to come in and learn it, and make sure that I knew it fluently. So when I get in my meetings with my players, they didn't notice that I didn't know this offense, that they're like a shark in the water. They smell blood, man, they're going to pounce. Sure. So I had to do extra meetings with myself, with coordinators, and learn this. And I would prepare my meetings, prior to the kids coming. I would get on the board and draw what I need to draw. I would prepare presentations that need to be prepared prior to the meeting. Now, as a coach that's 10 years in, it's, meetings are like, nothing to me. It's like clockwork. It's as simple as easy because I already have it set up. I know what I want to do. Like I had never had a meeting before. I'm a position coach. I have never been a position coach. I'm 23 years old and I'm coaching running backs and tight ends. So it helped me as a man, as an individual, as a coach, to just know the grind that you got to put in to be what you want to be. I knew I wanted to be a coach. I knew I wanted to be my profession, so I was not going to fail. I made myself do what I need to do to learn this position as a coach, to be able to teach it to my kids. I had cheat sheets, wristbands at practice. If I didn't know something, I would go through it with the coordinator, what we had to do for that day. I would have wristband cheat sheets on, and I would have a cheat sheet practice schedule. It would be catered to what I need to coach and how I need to coach it. I have my notes typed out on it or written out on it. And, by game 6, to be honest with you, that's when I kind of felt real comfortable. Mm-hmm. It took a minute. I went right in there in July and we got rolling. I didn't have time to get comfortable with it. I just had to know what I had to know and basically regurgitate that and teach those kids the best way I knew how. So I think it helped me just overall, just with the preparation of being a football coach, with the grind of putting all the hours in to learn, a unique offense that was, I say unique to me because I never coached the offense side of the ball, so it helped me in so many ways. I didn't even know it was helping me, because now when I look back at it, I'm like, man, this is easy what I'm doing now compared to what I did then,
Coach, I think another impactful experience had to be, being at LSU. And again, you're in a position, you're off the field. You're seeing things through a different lens in being a personnel guy. And you're learning from one of the best when it comes to something important. You said there's, and I know Coach really believes it, is be yourself, right? How do you excel at recruiting? And, what we're going to talk about here in a little bit, building that trust with your players. All that really stems from being yourself. So talk to us just a little bit about that experience with Coach O. Those things you really picked up that you feel are going to be a big part of who you are and what you do as a coach moving forward.
No doubt. One thing that I truly picked up is that he is a grinder. And I mean, in the office 4:35 a.m. and rolling all night. And he is he's heavy into recruiting. That's his thing. Anybody that knows Coach O, he is big time with recruiting. That's what he understands, that these players are the lifeline of this program. They if we don't have the players, then coaching is overrated. Especially in the SEC. Sure. Heck, anywhere. So he put a lot of pressure on me and my staff of guys to produce. What I mean by that is it was small things that we had to do to make sure that he and the rest of the assistant coaches and the defensive and offensive analysts, all those analysts and QCs, they knew who we needed to take, you know, and who we needed to recruit and how we needed to recruit this kid. So we did, you know, really deep research on these kids. You know, I had a staff where it was me and three other full-time guys, and it was roughly 13 student assistants that helped out tremendously to help, you know, do the research on these kids, get to know them or without getting to know them, you know, on their behalf. And then once they got all the information that we needed, we got to know them before the coaches got to know them, you know, and we would, you know, relay this over to the coaching staff. Okay, these are who these kids are. This is what we need to do. This is the angle you need to take. This is the champion. This is who you need to talk to. This is who you don't need to talk to. This is what you need to say to this person. And we wanted to make sure that each coach everything was simplified for them to recruit this top recruit, if that makes sense to you. We wanted to make sure everything was simplified and cleaned up before it even got to the coach. So if we had a kid on the board that was a top running back in the nation, right? Of course, these coaches know about him, but they don't know about him, if that makes sense to you. They know about the kid. They see his rankings. They seen him play. But now let's dig into this kid and who he really is. Who's this champion? And when I say champion, who is going to be the most influential person in his recruiting? And we find out who that is. If that's the mom, if that's the dad, if that's the, you know, the trainer, if that's the, you know, person that just takes him around and, you know, shows him off. If that's the head coach, if that's his position coach, if that's his grandmother, is that his guidance counselor, whoever that person is, we have to find out who it is. And we don't want to do it by just, hey kid, who's your most influence in your recruiting? You know, we want to get to know the kid. Actually, we don't want to just like, you know, we don't want to be robots here. We want to get to know the kid and get to know him and who he is and what he stands for. And then once you do that, you figure out who that champion is, and then now you got to start recruiting the champion. Because if you recruit the champion, you win over the champion, then usually that champion will tell that kid, hey, that's the school you need to go to. So that's kind of how we built that relationship. And once we find out who the champions were, we would have conversation with the champions and have these kids in group text messages and have them just have regular conversations. Mm-hmm. And I would be in there starting the conversation, and it's just a normal deal. You know, we got freaking 20 guys in the group chat, and I'm talking with all of them, just having a regular conversation, just talking about life. What are you guys doing? You know, are you in class right now? That type deal. You know, just having normal conversations with these guys. It went a long way. You know, because you know, they don't really get a lot of that. To be honest with you, they get just talk about football, talk about grades, and that's it. You know, so.
Well, and you and I, before we got going, we're talking about the challenges in recruiting right now. And, you know, this particular class, this next group of signees really has not been in a period that it wasn't a dead period, right? This is pushed all the way to April right now. And so I think the things that you picked up and learned while you're at LSU and learned from Coach O and, you know, all the things that you just mentioned really are going to be something that's an advantage for you here in recruiting.
No doubt. And man, and the recruiting right now is, you know, very unique to say the least. It's going to be a full year really and probably it's going to be prolonged past that, where you can't, you know, actually go see a kid. You can't get them on campus to see you and see your campus and see your facilities and meet your coaching staff. So heck yeah, that's kind of what we're doing now. It's kind of what I have been doing. And I'm sure a lot of colleges and universities are doing what we're doing here at EKU. I present to my guys on Zoom on why I want them to come here. And you know, we got virtual tours. We have, you know, presentations of their plan, their 4 to 5 year plan at this university. And we present to them like we will present to them if they were on campus. After we show them that virtual tour and we present to them and present to their families, and heck, I still find out who the champion is and all my recruits, and I make sure I recruit the champion, outside of just talking to the kid, and I would, still do the group messages. So you're 100% correct. That helped me, now in my coaching, as far as my, coaching in my position, and it helped me also with recruiting my position and recruiting other positions. I learned a lot at LSU. It was very unique to be at a player personnel role, but I learned so much at that player personnel role. I basically became a recruiting coordinator in the SEC because I dictated where coaches were going to go on the road. I mapped out everything. I had a huge book for Coach O and other coaches that, that kind of told them where to go and how to go and who to talk to and when to talk to them. And they would call me while they was on the road. Hey, I just talked to such and such. It went well. And I would take my notes and I would, type it up and get it printed out for when they come in. We can have another recruiting meeting about how, that week of recruiting went before they hit the road again. So learned a lot, and it was a valuable situation, but it helped me to this day with recruiting. And now that recruiting has really been shut down for kids to come on campus and for us to go see them, that really, that method has helped a lot. And I think a lot of schools have went to that, all the Zoom calls, all the FaceTime calls, all the group chats, and you have to do it. Now it's making everybody recruit. It's making recruiters out of everybody, even guys that are not recruiters.
Exactly. Well, the recruiting never stops once a kid's on campus, right? You talked about building that relationship with them in recruiting, and that being something you pointed to as to why LSU was able to do what they could do, and part of what you're doing now. But you have to keep building that trust, right? And that to you is the important part when you're looking at how you build that position room and how you truthfully get to the heart of your players, so that you're getting them to do all the things that you need for you guys to be successful on the field.
Correct. No doubt. And that's one thing that you do when you get those guys on campus, you get to know who they really are. And that's one thing that's going to be missing from recruiting. You can Zoom call all you want, you can FaceTime, and you can have phone conversations all you want, but that part of getting to know an individual in person, looking that young man in the eye, looking their parents in the eye, seeing the mannerisms of this kid, understanding the mannerisms of the parents and the grandparents, and just actually getting them on campus to see who we are, who you are, and that's something unique in itself that's going to be missed, big time. But when I recruit and when I get kids on campus, it stems from that recruiting process. Like I said from the beginning, I am who I am. I'm naturally, can speak well. I'm natural people's person. They kind of, gravitate to me because I'm just, 100% honest and real with these kids. So missing that part of it is missing a huge part of it, because when I get if I was recruiting a defensive lineman and I got him on campus and I was able to, see him on campus and talk to him and meet him and let him see who I am face to face. And I tell that kid in the recruiting, look, this is me regardless. This is going to be me regardless. When I coach you, this is going to be me, We're going to laugh. We're going to joke. We're going to be serious. We're going to, we're going to learn a lot. We're going to make sure we're good in the classroom. But most of all, I'm going to love you. And sometimes it's going to be tough love. And sometimes it's going to be, it'll be easy for you. But that's part of the process. And so I tell these kids, you gotta love the process more than just the wins. Because if you don't go through the process, you don't get the wins, period. So that process of getting kids on campus and learning them in person is unique and it's needed, but right now we can't do it. So now the process is how we're doing it now. You and I right now sitting on this call, that's how we got it. Those are the things we have to do with those kids, right, and try to learn them in different ways. But when we get them on campus, and I try to tell my kids now and recruit, look, man, I'm on this phone with you now. This is how I'm going to be in person, you know, when you meet me for the first time after you sign, you know, so it's unique, but, man, this is what we have to do. It's a part of the process, and that's what I tell my kids. And this process is unique, but we have to do it. And this is what we're going to do, period. And when you get on campus, I'm still going to be the same person, all right? I'm still going to coach you the same way. I'm still going to coach you hard, you know. It's going to be love. It's going to be caring. We're going to laugh. We're going to joke. We're going to have a good time in our meeting rooms. We're going to learn a lot in our meeting rooms. And I'm going to make sure you go to class and get your degree, you know. And when it comes down to it, that's the most important thing, getting your degree. Because I know a lot of these kids have dreams and aspirations of going to play in the NFL, but that usually doesn't happen, you know. It doesn't happen for a lot of these, you know, college players. You know, these student athletes, they have to understand that, heck, man, you got a 1% chance, and actually a lot lower than that, to make it in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So let them know that, and just coach the heck out of them and get that degree. And hopefully that degree is something that you really want to do in your life. And me, myself, I try to make sure that, you know, I try to guide them in the right direction, because I was, you know, I got guided in the right direction by my coaches in college.
So kind of extending that, what you're doing in that meeting room to the field here. And, you know, everybody went through that period where there really was no meeting room. It was back to Zoom. You're doing it virtually, whatever it might be. So whether that's live or on the field, I know one of the big things for you and teaching those guys up front is training their eyes. So before you hit the field, what things are you doing in order to train their eyes? And I guess, you know, stepping back before we even go into that, you talked to me a little bit before we got going about the importance of eyes for the defensive lineman, that it's really going to make a difference for them. You know, good eyes, you're going to have good run fits. They're going to protect linebackers, et cetera. Bad eyes, you're going to end up in some bad situations. So talk to us about that overall and why it's so important to you.
No doubt. And it starts pre-snap. You know, I want to make sure I teach my guys the game of football and how simple you can make it for yourself up front, how I can slow the game down for them. And how do we do that? With our eyes, all right? Understanding each week is a different week, and we have to understand what offense we're playing this week. Heck, just last week, I had to teach my guys where that tight end was. You know, I had to teach them 2-man versus 3-man surfaces, which they understand the 2-man versus 3-man surfaces deal, right? But now it plays a huge role in slowing down the game for you and understanding what blocks you're going to get. So if I'm a 5 technique, and I have to understand that if I have a 3-man surface, no matter what it is, if that is attached tight end, if that is a hip tight end, or if that is a sniffer tight end that's to my side, I'm looking for a certain run. And that certain run was outside zone. They were an outside zone cutback. So now I know what blocks I'm going to get on the front side. Now I know on the back side, if it's a 3-man surface away from me and I got a 2-man surface, all right, and they run this outside zone, the stretch play heavily, 85% of the time, I'm going to get cut. So I need to get ready to play for this cut block. So it starts pre-snap with just eyes, all right? So now if I know what block is coming, now I lock back in on my primary key, all right? And those are with my eyes. I lock in on my primary key. I know what block is about to come, so I'm going to slow this game down. And now with my eyes, I'm going to strike my primary key, you know, and I come through my hips, hands, and feet violently and get big in my gap. I have to defeat man on before I can do anything else. And that's all with my eyes, my eye progression. You know, it's man on, all right? And then we think about what did we see pre-snap? All right, where's the running back? Is he in pistol? Is he gun near? Is he gun far? You know, is he near me? Is he away from me? All right. All right. So what runs can I get if he's away from me with a 3-man surface? Outside zone. All right. So now it's all clicking with my eyes. I've done nothing yet, you know, just pre-snap. It's all my eyes. But I know what play is coming because of my eyes. All right. And now, like I said, you primary key, you strike your primary key. All right. You got a defeat man on with your hips, hands, and feet. All right. Striking and being big in your gap. Once I defeat man on with my eyes, I go for my primary key. All right. I get my eyes in my gap. All right. There's no one in my gap. I've been playing this play because I played the play pre-snap. I know it was outside zone. So now that cutback has already presented itself. All right. I got my eyes in my gap. I'm big in my gap. It's a cutback. I got primary gap, and then I could arm over, you know, violent release, arm over to my secondary gap to make a play on a running back. And I did all that with my eyes. Of course, I had to strike a player, but if I don't look at my primary key to strike it the correct way, then I'm high. Then I have no power, you know, then I have nothing with my hips. I have no power for my hips if I'm looking in the backfield trying to figure out the play. You know, we do that pre-snap. We see all those things pre-snap. And now we can see our primary key, which I tell my guys to keep the tip of the pad of our offensive lineman that we're lined up on. You know, that tip of that pad, you follow that tip of that pad, you strike the tip of that pad, breastplate to the tip of the pad. You know, you get big in your gap. You know, you got eye control in your gap. You're big in your gap. You see your gap. Your gap is under control. You warn your gap. Now you can go make a play. All right, you do it with your eyes. Primary gap, secondary gap. All right, you tear off and go make a play on the running back. Or if it's time to transition, once we already did all this process with our eyes, if it's time to transition to the pass rush, that's what we do. So yes, eyes are huge, 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 huge. If you have bad eyes, you're looking in the backfield, you're standing up, you know, you don't have much power because you're trying to figure out what's going on in the backfield, the running back and the quarterback, and your transition is late. You know, I want to create another line of scrimmage. Mm-hmm. And I do that with low pad level. I do that with violence, all right, displacing that blocker, all right, and making sure that I play with fanatical effort. And I can't do that with bad eyes. All right. So my eye progression has to be on point. I have to have great eyes in pre-snap. I have to have great eyes during the play. And I have to have great eyes understanding and have a great feel if I have to transition from run to pass.
So Coach, as you look at the different schemes you're going to face, I think one that's really coming to the forefront at every level right now, being used more and more, a lot because it works well with the RPO and making sure guys don't get down the field, et cetera. But it definitely distorts the defense and open things up is that outside zone, right? And so those gaps in, you know, your aim point for your eyes, et cetera, start to move very quickly, right? And you have to maintain that gap and integrity in moving gaps. Now, with that play, certainly penetration is a key factor in stopping it. You got to be careful with that because as soon as a team sees penetration, then they're going to maybe go to some answers there. So a lot goes into defending that play well. With that, you know, kind of play that's moving and it's very dynamic, what are some of the key points that you're training your defensive linemen for, especially, again, going back to the eyes?
Right. And one thing I always tell my guys, man, is your gap is going to move. These are not trash cans that you're striking. So every time that you play this game of football, there's going to be somebody else just as, you know, pissed off as you are, and they want to beat you up, you know. So just because you're training hard doesn't mean that this offensive line isn't training hard, and they will know your mannerisms too. That they have been coached as well. All right. So let's go into that game understanding that, okay, because we have tendencies too. All right. So, and I let them know the realness of it, you know, and how we have to play with fanatical effort, you know, and I say that, you know, not lightly. You know, some people give you good effort, you know, he's okay with effort or whatever. I want fanatical effort. I want those guys playing lights out. And when you're on that field, I want you playing so hard that I want you to leave it all out there. All right. If I had to get you, I wrote a lot of defensive linemen this year, a lot of young guys too. So if I have to get you out, I can get you out. I got you, you know, and it's a part of the game, but I need you going 110%. I need everything from you. All right. If I can get that, and with the technique that I'm teaching you, we can be a pretty good dang on D-line. But back to the eyes and back to that gap moving, you know, we got to drill that. And that's, you know, I do half line drills and I show them every block they're going to get for that week. We drill it. We move the offensive line. I'll get my scout O-line guys out there, get them lined up with a running back, with a quarterback, with 3 down linemen and a tight end if I need them at that time, and we drill it. All my drills are practical drills, and it will help you be a better football player for this week against this team every week. So having those practical drills and training their eyes ad nauseum over and over and over and over again, it makes the game a lot easier. It slows the game down. Of course, having good eyes slows it down, but how do you have good eyes? You got to train your eyes. Just like you train your body, you train your muscles. But training your eyes, it's unique because when you train your eyes, you're training your muscle memory. You know, that's a muscle memory to have my eyes locked in on my keys. All right, I make my guys call out what they see at practice. I mean, they communicate at practice pre-snap. I want to hear it at practice so I can know and be confident that you're going to do it in the game without having to call it out every time. But if you want to call it out, great. Tell the offense what you know about their offense before the play is even snapped, you know. And I drill it, and we move the offensive line. We'll stretch them and have the gap move. And I want those guys to set the tone in the game, you know. And they set it at practice first. So, but for myself, you know, we talk about the gap moving and having our eyes, and how do we kind of restrict that? You know, once we strike half a man, we strike the tip of that pad. We reach the tip of that pad and strike the breastplate to the tip of that pad. We got to anchor down. We got to get in power scoop position. We got to restrict that gap. We can't allow the gap to continue to just widen out and allow that running back to just pick whatever cutback lane he wants. We have to stop the movement of the offensive lineman. All right. At first, you're going to get that move. All right. And you strike that guy away. And you got to have great eyes, of course. Like I said, once you strike him, you have to get in great power scoop position. And that's half a man. And that's on the side of the man where you can actually anchor down and power scoop that offensive lineman down. All right. Basically restricting the gap so it won't get as wide. And once you anchor down to stop the movement of offensive lineman, it helps you, for one, to get big in your gap, to declare your gap, have great gap integrity, but it helps the linebacker as well, as he's running free. All right. So when he runs free and you're helping him out with that, now we can go make a play with our eyes, understanding what we're going to get next. All right. So I teach a bunch of different techniques to kind of solidify that we are okay. And I get a lot of this stuff, you know, and like every other coach, you know, you get it from somebody else and you remix it and make it your own, you know. And I learned a lot from Pete Jenkins. I actually met him several times and clinic with him over here at UK. So it's a lot of coaches that do the same stuff that I do. And a lot of us got it from Pete Jenkins, and a lot of us kind of, you know, put our own little mix to it to make it, you know, who we are as a coach. So, but that great eyes, with great technique and understanding the defense and what we need to do in this defense is huge. So that power scoop position and that, you know, vital release to the running back or the quarterback is going to be major. I tell my guys up front, man, it's not a difficult game at D-line. Look, man, you want to be more violent than that guy in front of you. You want to have great eyes. You want to strike them, all right, create another line of scrimmage. And if they're, going to they zoning to you a zoning way, all right, we have to play it. We have to restrict gaps. We're on the backside of a zone. We get ready for a cut or something of that nature, and get ready to be deepest and chase it down. Because there's always a reverse. There's always a end around, something that can run off of that. Because if you're chasing it down from the back end, they're going to see it up top. The coaches up top, their coaches too. They're going to see it. All right, that defense end on the backside, he's not even worried about the quarterback. They're going to run some type of boot off of it, So all that stuff is coaching too. When I make sure I go through those drills and I have my guys understand. Now, if I'm on the backside of if it's a zone read, if I'm a defensive end, and it's a true zone read of that quarterback looking at that defensive end. All right, now we're going to slow play that. We're going to, read the tackle. Tackle goes down. He's veer blocking. All right, and I squeeze all the air out of it. I make sure my gap is closed, okay, and I'm staying square. And then once that quarterback, I'm reading the mesh. Once that quarterback gives it, and I can chase it down. Now, if I get the back of the quarterback and he's not actually reading me, but it's the same blocking schemes and everything's the same, and I get the back of the quarterback, now I'm chasing it down right away. Now, if guys up top see it on film, then that's when they'll run a boot out of it. And, I got to coach that up too. So now I'm telling that kid to chase it down, but chase it down slow, if that makes sense to you. So I'll still go through my progressions of squeezing and taking the air out of it. And then once I see that back, then I'm chasing it through the back of the quarterback, if that makes sense to you. I want to get as deep as deep, but I want to chase it as deep as deep. And I want my 3 technique that's away from me. And I want my end to set their edges in great power school position. They set their edges. All right, we got linebackers running down to fit it, and I'm coming on the backside to chase it down. So small things of that nature that helps you with your eyes,
Absolutely. Coach, to wrap things up, you've covered a lot here today for us, but with what you do as a coach and what you try to do to make your players successful on and off the field, what's the one thing you feel that you do that really gives them the winning edge?
Care about them, love them. To be honest with you, these kids are not going to play, and I mean they're going to play hard. They're going to go hard. It's football. You kind of got to do it. You're forced to do it. I want kids to love doing what they're doing on the field. I want them to have a passion for it. If they love it and they have a passion for it, and if they will run through a brick wall for you, then you're going to get every bit of everything about those kids. All 110% of them. I mean, I need it all. I want it all. And I build that in the meeting rooms or in just regular conversations with the kids. My kids can come in my office and they can sit down and talk to me for 20 minutes, and it's not even about football. It's about just life. It's about the situations they're going through at home. It's about the little brother is, going through something back at home and they want to talk about that, or mom, dad, auntie, uncle, whatever the case may be. These kids won't play for you unless, and when I say play for you, of course the kids are going to play regardless, but I mean really play for you, want to see and want to be great because they want to make their coach proud. And they're going to do everything in their power to make their coach proud because they know that you care, and once they find out that you care, you love them, man, they will run through a brick wall for you. And I feel like, in some places it's a lost art. A lot of coaches do it, but a lot of coaches don't. I really care about my kids. I love them. And I tell them that, I'm not going to go after any game or before any game, and I don't tell those kids that I love them. I want them to know that, and it's true and it's honest. I have a connection with those guys that I feel like it's my child. If something happens off the field and they're late for a class or, whatever the case may be, I'm calling them, where are you? Like I would call my 7-year-old, what are you doing? And I treat them as, as such, like I'm a father figure to some of them. I'm a big brother figure to some of them that have a father figure already. So, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being that person. But I don't feel like there's any special sauce or anything. I just feel like you got to actually love your players. You got to care about them. You got to show it. You got to say it. And you got to preach it and you got to do it. And once you do that, they'll do the same for you. They'll love you back and they'll show you that they love you back. Their care back. And their care is playing their tails off for you and actually running through a brick wall for you and doing the things that you ask them to do, but with a fanatical effort.
Coach, it's great stuff, and I appreciate you sharing all that. Before we go, I want to make sure our listeners know your recruiting areas. So if they have somebody who they think fits for you, they could get in contact with you. What areas do you recruit?
Well, right now I'm local, Kentucky, Lexington area, Mercer County area. So the local Kentucky areas from Richmond here, and also I recruit the mid to south. So from Dublin, Georgia, basically on all the way down of Georgia. I have the entire state of Alabama, okay, and I got South Florida. So if you guys got anybody in those, Alabama, because it's tough to recruit the entire state. If you got somebody in Alabama and South Florida there, just, man, don't hesitate to let me know, because recruiting right now is all virtual. So.
Yep. And Coach, best way for them to connect with you?
My Twitter. I'm usually on my Twitter. I'm usually hipped with my phone. So it's Coach J Hawkins. Just Coach, the letter J, Hawkins, Hawkins. It's real easy. At Coach J Hawkins.
Well, Coach, I really appreciate you taking the time. It was great to connect with you here, and I look forward to seeing what you do here in the future. You definitely have done some great things so far, and I think there's a lot more for us to watch with Coach Jeremy Hawkins. So, again, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you again for listening to the Coaching Coordinator Podcast. Please, if you are enjoying the podcast, head over to iTunes or Spotify and click 5-star for a rate. If you have a minute, write a review. It really helps the podcast. Check out our new home for the Coaching Coordinator Podcast. That's at coachandcoordinator.com. And follow me on Twitter at Coach K. Grabowski.